And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Was Galaxy of Trian a Kickstarter project? Well, it says thank you on all four sides of the box, so I think so. It also comes with these really cool pictures. I want to put these up on my wall or something. They look really cool, of the different aliens that are in the game. On the back of them, they're thank yous to all the Kickstarters. I guess that's one good way to do it, rather than maybe put it all in the rule book. But Galaxy of Trian is a space Carcassonne. There's really no other way to say it. It's a tile-laying game where you use triangle tiles, and you're going to place them on the board, forming a galaxy, trying to control nebulas and mine those nebulas for resources while trying to control areas of space and planetary networks. Let me show you a little bit about how the game works. Each person has their own alien sheet here where you have some scoring tokens for keeping track of your score. Yes, you have a ones, tens, and 100 columns, and that's right, you can go up to 999 points in this game. You also have a bunch of emissaries, research stations, and space stations, and the number you get is based on the number of players in the game. Now, this game comes with this wooden, it's a pretty big, chunky thing. It fits in the box barely, but it holds the different tiles in the game. And these tiles are double-sided, and so on your turn, the first thing you'll do is you will harvest minerals, which doesn't matter right now. Hang on, we'll get to that. But then you draw a tile, and you can use either side of that tile and place it on the board. And as you place tiles on the board, they have to touch other tiles properly. Like, for example, here I can place this tile like this, but this nebula can't attach to that. So, and then if I would, let's say I would draw a nebula piece later on, then I can touch that to this nebula, and so on. So you're building this a big giant thing out here, and it actually starts looking pretty cool after a while. There are these green lines here, basically mean nothing except they separate space. So if I'm building an area in space, I can put something there like that. Now, after you put out a tile on the board, you then can place an emissary on that tile if you so desire. You have one action that you can take, and one of those actions is placing an emissary. So if this nebula was not finished yet, I could place one of my emissaries in that nebula. And the reason I want to do that is because when you close off something, when it's completely finished, you're going to get points for the number of tiles. So for example, when I close off a nebula, I'm going to get 1 point per each tile in the nebula. So if this nebula is closed off, I'm going to get 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to have the most in an area to control that area. Now, depending on who closes the nebula, let's say I'm the one who plays it, I'm the red player, and I play this here. I can, and let's say I had 2 emissaries in it, I might pull one of them off because I control it. So I only need to leave one guy in there, probably. Now, that's all well and good, but if someone else closes it, let's say my friend Bob closes it, at that point, they're all stuck there. They can't move. So I've wasted 2 of my emissaries in one area. But either way, when you close off one of these spots, you get 1 point. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4 points. When you close off a planetary system, let's say this planetary system had been closed off, I would get 2 points, 2, 4, 6, 8, which is quite a bit. When you close off a space area, so let's see here, let's say this space area gets closed off. We got to find a way that we can shut down. Let's say, for example, here we go. A space area is closed like this, and let's say I had an emissary in there. That would get me 3 points per tile. 3, 6, 9. So there's quite a lot of different scoring. Obviously, empty space is the best during game itself. Now, when you close off a nebula, you're also going to be adding some of these minerals to it. Now, the minerals are different colors, but that doesn't matter. And that depends, because when you have an emissary in a certain spot, whether they're on a planet, whether they're in a nebula, whether they're in open space, you can upgrade them as an action. Instead of putting out an emissary, I can upgrade one of my emissaries into a research station. And later on, that research station can upgrade into a space station. Now, these space stations and research stations will give you extra points at the end of the game, but they also will mine resources from nebulas. So when the nebula is closed, there's resources there at the beginning of your turn. You'll get some, depending on the most you can get is 2, but you'll get 1 from a research station and 2 from a space station. And as the game goes along, you will find some nebulas that have a mineral extraction thing in it already, and that will give you one. It also adds one to that area when you put it down. At the end of the game, each of these minerals that you get are going to be worth points, so it's important that you get those. There are other things in the game. You might find a teleport token. When you do this, you have a chance when you place it down, you can move a token that's next to it to another spot. It can even be somebody else's. So that's you can even take over a finished thing that somebody has, which will count for end game scoring. End game scoring is important to talk about here. At the end of the game, you're going to get points for each closed system that you control. You're going to get points for the nebulas, but you're going to really get a lot of points for the planetary systems. If you have a planetary system, let's say, let me make here's a really small planetary system, and I have a research station in it at the end of the game, I'm going to multiply that by 4, so that'd be 8 points. But if I had one of my space stations in it, then I'm going to multiply it by 10. So that's 20 points. So getting a space station in a big planetary system can get you a lot of points at the end of the game. Nebulas will give you extra points at the end of the game, but not nearly as many as these space stations. But you only have a limited amount of them, so you have to decide how to do it. There's also these X-mitter tiles that can be played over the course of the game, and that basically, when you put those down, you send back all the tokens that are next to it. And there's other special abilities and things. Then there's an advanced version of the game in which you can play with ships. There are ship tokens. In fact, it's kind of interesting because on your player aid, you actually can add an extra spot to put these ships here. And on your turn, one of the actions you can have, besides placing tiles, can be to put ships out on the board. And these ships can fly around and attack other ships, which give you points. And at the end of the game, if you have the most ships in an area, you can plunder and get points from other people for areas that they control. There's also other things, family variants and such. So the game ends when all the tiles run out. At that point, you'll do ends game scoring to see who controls the different areas that are still on the board. You add up all your points, and whoever has the most points is the winner of the game. It's going to be very difficult for people who played Carcassonne to play this and not see a lot of similarities, and there are some, because you're going to be placing tiles and controlling areas of space, fields, planetary systems, roads, and mining areas, cities. Now, there's obviously some differences here. Getting into an area and mining it, that's something different where you'll be pulling those off that are points at the end of the game. Also, this game is mean. Flat out mean, 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 mean. And that's where you're not even playing with the spaceships. When you add the spaceship rules in, it's even meaner. But as it is, you can teleport into different areas. You can shut people off areas. People could be trying to control an area. You can shut it down, trap all their emissaries. In that region, you have a very limited amount of these dudes. So if you get your emissaries trapped in a region, your best bet is to either somehow put down a teleport tile next to them and get them out of there, or use the rest of what you have to your best advantage. Empty space is a lot of points. Don't let that fool you. You can get a big giant area of empty space that no one's watching and get 3 points times the tiles. 10, 15 tiles, that can be a lot of points. Although at the end of the game, scoring a planetary system, if someone gets on it one of their space stations, that can also be a tremendous amount of points. Triangle tiles are really cool in theory. The double-sided stuff is fine, except that the rules say there are certain tiles that need to be face down at the beginning of the game. So you have to go through, find all those tiles, make sure they're face down before you shuffle them and put them on. That's kind of a pain. But this wooden piece, wow, it looks really bulky. It looks like something I could stab somebody with. It works fine, and it actually holds them in a nice pile rather than falling over the place. Still, just seems a little clunky, but it works. But the tiles are fine. The double-sided is a good idea. I like drawing it and looking at them. But the triangle pieces for the emissaries and such are a real pain. Now, the game is like if you're taking a nebula, stick it in the corner and stuff. But the fact is, you'll be putting them on planets and different things, and you're constantly... They're just so big. They're so big they cover stuff up. And they're also... The space stations and research stations, at a glance, are not easy to tell apart. One has 1 dot and one has 2 dots, but they just don't look... They're just not the best quality. I don't know how to explain it. I wish they had made... I know they made them triangles for purpose of the game and the theming of the game, but I think they would have looked a lot better. That's a functional thing, and it's not the end of the world. Also, the different color resources, I'm assuming there's an expansion that will make these different resources matter for color purposes. The military game, should you add it or not, like I said, it makes the game doubly mean, and if you like that, I think you'll enjoy it, although it adds more options and will slow the game down considerably because there's many different things you can do on your turn. But the regular game itself, it's interesting. And man, I'm really kind of waffling on this one. I think I'm going to say that the game is fine, but here's my problem. It is so similar to Carcassonne that I have to keep comparing it to that. I don't like to take a game and say, well, it's another game, but what did this game add? It makes Carcassonne mean, makes the tiles triangular, adds a space theme to it, and adds mining. And that does actually change quite a few things. But at the end of the day, it still feels functionally the same. And it's very possible for somebody to score some mega thing, and maybe it's a tile they drew, you were about to do it, and they teleport one of your guys out, and then the next tile they draw is the one that they can drop one of their guys, and they score a huge amount of points, and that's essentially the game. It's really hard to come back when someone scores a mega amount of points, unless you score a mega amount of points also. And sometimes it just works out that way. So I like the game, but it could have been better. It still has the smell of a Kickstarter project. Like it wasn't developed quite enough, and it's a little clunky as it plays. See, again, I keep saying Carcassonne, but Carcassonne was so smooth and easy. The farmers were a convoluted thing at Carcassonne. A lot of people complained about that one rule. Well, this game has like 6 rules like that, and so maybe this will appeal more to gamers. In fact, some of the gamers I played it with liked this better and thought this was a cool idea and were enamored by the space theme. I like space themes myself, but sometimes it doesn't work. Now, granted, putting it together, setting out the universe, oh, it's beautiful. Love how it looks, and great artwork on these aliens. It's stupendous. But other than that, it's merely a decent game. I think it could have been better, but it's just missing something. Dice Tower Judgment, if you like Mean Carcassonne, approved.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.
There.